"We can't afford to keep you fed," my mom said, throwing me out at 18. A decade later, I'm a chef with a Michelin star. They came by asking for a free table. I sent the waiter over with the bill. And a note: "We reserve the right to refuse service." I've got a story that's been simmering for years, and I'm finally ready to spill all the beans. Grab a snack, because this one's a wild ride through a decade of betrayal, struggle, and, ultimately, a satisfaction so sweet it tasted like revenge. But not in the way you might think. I grew up in Ohio, in what looked like a pretty standard middle-class family. My dad was an insurance adjuster, my mom did part-time bookkeeping. Nothing fancy, right? But underneath that seemingly normal surface, something was really messed up. When my younger sister, Natalie, was born, I was 2 at the time. It felt like the entire world, and especially my parents' attention, tilted completely in her direction. Every decision, every purchase, every single family plan revolved around Natalie. It was like I became invisible. I remember when I was 8, my bike was way too small for me. I asked my dad for a new one, and he flat out told me we couldn't afford it. 2 weeks later, Natalie got a brand new, elaborate princess-themed bedroom set. Cost them about $800. My $60 bike? Too expensive. That pattern just continued. I wore hand-me-downs until they practically disintegrated, while Natalie always had the latest clothes. I was shoved into a tiny room filled with storage boxes, while she claimed the master bedroom. My birthdays were a pathetic card with $20 tucked inside. Hers? Lavish-themed parties with dozens of guests. When I dared to ask my mom why, she'd just sigh and say, "Your sister needs more attention. You're tough, you can handle things." Translation: I was expected to raise myself. They were too busy doting on their precious daughter. High school wasn't any different. Natalie's competitive dance got them to shell out $2,000 for costumes and travel fees. My culinary club's $5 membership? Too much right now. But that culinary club, man, that changed everything for me. Mr. Peterson, my teacher, saw something in me that my parents never did. He let me stay after school, taught me knife skills, even brought in ingredients from his own kitchen. "You've got natural instincts," he'd tell me. Food, it just made sense to me. In the kitchen, I had control. I could create something amazing from nothing. My parents? They never came to a single culinary showcase. When I won second place in a regional cooking competition, my mom just glanced at the trophy and asked if I'd cleaned my room. But when Natalie placed 4th in a local dance competition, it was a whole production. Celebration dinner, relatives invited, social media posts for weeks. It was a constant, sharp reminder of where I stood. Senior year rolled around, and I started looking at colleges. The Culinary Institute of America had this incredible program a few hours away. Tuition was about $30,000 a year. I'd been working at a local diner since I was 16 and managed to save about $8,000. I swallowed my pride and asked my parents for help with tuition, or at least to co-sign a loan. My dad just laughed. "We're not spending that kind of money so you can learn to flip burgers," he said. "Get a real job." A real job. That cut deep. Just 2 months later, they bought Natalie a brand new $22,000 Honda Civic for her 16th birthday. She hadn't even asked for it. I was still driving the beat-up, $500 Toyota they'd given me years ago. "But Natalie needs reliable transportation for dance," Mom explained. The inequality was just impossible to ignore. In my junior year alone, they spent over $15,000 on Natalie. On me? Maybe $300, and only because my work shoes literally fell apart. When I tried to show my mom the numbers, thinking maybe, just maybe, she'd see it, she got furious. "How dare you track our spending like we're criminals? We give you a roof and food. Your sister has special needs." Special needs? Natalie was perfectly healthy. She just had special wants, and my parents always made sure she got them. The final breaking point came 3 weeks after I turned 18. I'd gotten accepted to the Culinary Institute with a partial scholarship, covering 40%. I still needed $7,000 for the first year. I'd applied for every grant and loan imaginable, worked extra shifts, sold everything I could think of. I went to my parents, one last time, to ask for a loan. Not a gift, a loan. I even had a payment schedule ready. Dad didn't even look at it. Just a flat, cold no. Mom added, "We don't have that kind of money." The very next day, Natalie announced she wanted to attend a summer dance intensive in New York. 8 weeks of training, costing $12,000. My dad, without missing a beat, said, "Of course, sweetheart. We'll make it work." I stood there, listening to that, and I swear, my world just crumbled. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. Something inside me just snapped. I realized with absolute clarity that they would never choose me. They would never support me. They would never see me as worth investing in. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "How do you have $12,000 for Natalie, but not $7,000 for my education?" My mom sighed, like I was being an inconvenience. "Natalie's program is an incredible opportunity. Your cooking school is just cooking. It's one of the best culinary institutes in the country," I countered, my voice still quiet. Dad cut me off. "It's a waste of money. You'll end up in a kitchen for minimum wage. At least Natalie's training might lead somewhere." My own parents believed my passion was worthless. The next morning, my belongings were in trash bags, sitting by the front door. My mom stood there, arms crossed. "We've decided it's time for you to move out. You're 18, an adult. We need the space, and we can't afford to keep feeding you while saving for Natalie's program." Can't afford to feed me? They had 12 grand for dance camp, but couldn't afford to feed their son. "You're kicking me out?" I asked, my voice flat. "We're helping you become independent," Dad said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Time to stand on your own feet." Natalie watched from the stairs, not saying a word. Not defending me. Nothing. I just loaded those trash bags into my beat-up car and drove away. Didn't cry. Didn't beg. I just left. That was the last time I stepped foot in that house. The first few months were brutal. I couldn't afford an apartment on diner wages alone. Mr. Peterson, bless his heart, let me crash on his couch for a month. His wife made sure I ate real meals. They showed me more care in 4 weeks than my parents had in years. "This is temporary," Mr. Peterson told me. "You've got talent. Don't let them take that from you." I deferred my culinary school acceptance for a year. I got a second job, washing dishes at Meridian, a higher-end restaurant. I worked 90 hours a week, sometimes more. The head chef, Chef Anton, was this intimidating French guy, ran his kitchen like a military operation. But after a month, he pulled me aside. "You're wasting talent washing dishes," he grumbled. "Tomorrow, you start on prep." I became a prep cook, breaking down chickens, dicing vegetables, making stocks. It was grunt work, but I was learning. Chef Anton was tough, but fair. "You have good instincts," he'd say, "but instincts mean nothing without discipline." After 6 months, I rented a tiny room in a house with 3 other guys. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Meanwhile, Natalie's summer intensive happened. My parents posted constant updates about her incredible experience. Not a single mention of their son working 2 jobs just to survive. I unfollowed them all. I needed to focus on my own future. By the time I enrolled at the Culinary Institute, I'd saved enough to cover most of my first year's tuition, taking minimal loans for the rest. The institute was intense, but it was incredible. Classical French techniques, molecular gastronomy, wine pairing, restaurant management. My instructors quickly recognized my work ethic. While other students complained, I thrived. I'd been working in kitchens for over a year already. I had a head start. In my second year, I landed an internship at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Chef Linda Park was known for innovative American cuisine. She pushed me harder than anyone, but she believed in me. When I suggested a modification to one of her dishes, she actually had me prepare it, tasted it, and added it to the menu. "You've got something, Jake," she told me. "That instinct for flavors, you can't teach that." I graduated at the top of my class. My parents weren't there. Mr. and Mrs. Peterson came instead. Chef Park offered me a line cook position, an opportunity most graduates would kill for. The next 4 years were a masterclass in fine dining. I worked every station, learned her operations, how she developed dishes. When she opened a second location, she chose me to run the kitchen. At 24, I became the head chef of a restaurant that earned its own Michelin star within a year. The recognition was surreal. Critics mentioned my name. Industry publications did profiles. At 26, I left to open my own place. Finding investors was tough, but having a Michelin star and Chef Park's endorsement opened doors. I pitched my concept, elevated comfort food with seasonal, locally sourced ingredients. Ember opened in a renovated warehouse downtown. Exposed brick, open kitchen, seating for 60. A small menu that changed weekly based on the best ingredients. The first 6 months were brutal, long hours, constant stress, money problems. But word spread. Food bloggers came. Critics noticed. Reservations filled weeks in advance. In year 2, we earned our first Michelin star. I was 27. Head chef and owner of a Michelin-starred restaurant. The kid kicked out at 18 had built something extraordinary. My staff became like family. Christina, my sous chef, had been with me since day one. She understood my vision and kept everything running smoothly. You built something real here, Jake, she'd say. Not just the food, but the culture. Life was good. Successful restaurant, great team, industry respect, financial security. Everything I'd built was mine. Then my family showed up. It started with a reservation request. The name didn't register at first, but reviewing Saturday's list, something made me look closer. Party of 4 under Mitchell family. Same last name. Hometown area code. Guest notes. Looking forward to the incredible food. Natalie. They'd found me. After 10 years of silence, they just showed up. Christina noticed my expression. Everything okay? She asked. I left the reservation active, but I added a note. Do not comp anything. Standard service only. Saturday came, and I was more nervous than I'd been in years. This was my restaurant. My kitchen. My rules. They arrived on time. I watched from the kitchen pass as the host seated them. Mom looked older. Dad had gained weight. Natalie was overdressed. Some guy was with her. They looked impressed, but tried hard not to show it. Mom was reading the menu with raised eyebrows. Probably at the prices. Our tasting menu was $150 per person. A la carte dishes ranged from $35 to $75. Not outrageous for a Michelin-starred restaurant, but definitely not cheap. Christina came up beside me. That's them. Yep. Our server, James, came back to the pass. Table 12 is asking if the chef does table visits. They requested to speak with you. Of course they did. Tell them I'm busy with service, but I'll try to stop by if there's time. They ordered the tasting menu. All 4 of them. $600 before drinks and tax. I treated them like any other guests. Same food, same service, same experience. My team executed every course perfectly. The progression showcased technique and seasonal ingredients. James reported back after each course. They seemed to enjoy the food, though Mom kept asking endless preparation questions, and Dad commented on portion sizes. Natalie was taking pictures of everything for social media. Of course. After the main course, James returned, looking uncomfortable. They're asking again if you can come to the table. Your sister said to tell you it's important family business. Family business. During Saturday service, Christina touched my arm. You don't have to go. I'll go, I said, but only for a minute. I took off my chef's coat, washed my hands, and headed to table 12. As I approached, I could see them all sit up straighter, putting on smiles. Jake. Mom stood up, like she was going to hug me. I took a small step back and she froze, looking hurt. Good evening, I said, my voice completely professional, devoid of warmth. I hear you wanted to speak with the chef. The formal tone clearly threw them off. Dad recovered first, extending his hand for a shake. I didn't take it. Just kept my hands clasped behind my back, maintaining that professional distance. Son, it's so good to see you. The food has been incredible. We had no idea you'd accomplished so much. Thank you. We work hard to maintain our standards. Natalie jumped in, all manufactured enthusiasm. This place is amazing. I've been posting about it and my followers are so impressed. We absolutely had to come try it once we found out this was your restaurant. How did you find out? I asked, genuinely curious what had prompted this visit after a decade of silence. There was an article in the regional magazine, Dad said. They did a feature on local chefs, and there was your picture. We recognized you immediately. So, they'd seen my success in a magazine and decided to show up. Not because they'd been following my career or were genuinely proud, but because media attention made me relevant enough to acknowledge. The magazine piece was very complimentary, Mom added quickly. Though I told everyone we always knew you had potential. I used to tell people about your cooking talents all the time. The audacity was stunning. They'd literally called my career choice a waste of money, kicked me out of their house. But now, suddenly, they'd always known I had potential. And were bragging about me to their friends. We were hoping we could talk, Dad said. Maybe after your shift? We have some things we'd like to discuss. Family matters. I'm afraid I have a full evening, I replied. Multiple seatings and prep for tomorrow's service. Surely you can spare an hour for your family, Mom said, that familiar edge creeping into her voice. The same tone she'd used when I was a kid and not cooperating with whatever they wanted. I treat all my guests equally, I said, my voice firm. And right now, I have other tables that need attention. Please enjoy your dessert course. I'll have James bring it out shortly. I started to walk away, but Natalie called out, wait, can we at least get a picture for my social media? I turned back. I'm afraid I don't do that during service. If you'd like, you can take pictures of the restaurant itself, but I don't pose for photos with guests. Company policy. It wasn't actually company policy. I'd done photo ops with guests before for special occasions or respected food enthusiasts, but for them? Not a chance. Back in the kitchen, Christina gave me a questioning look. They want to talk about family matters, I said, putting my coat back on. I told them I was busy. Good, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. They don't deserve your time. The dessert course went out. Chocolate souffle with raspberry and vanilla bean ice cream, one of our signature dishes. James reported they enjoyed it, took more pictures, and asked multiple times if I was coming back to the table. When their check came, Dad apparently looked at it for a long moment before handing over his credit card. $648 with drinks, plus automatic 20% gratuity for parties over 3, bringing the total to nearly $800. That's when things got really interesting. James came back to the kitchen, looking worried. Table 12 is asking to speak with a manager. They're disputing the check. What's the issue? They expected the meal to be comped, he said. Said, since your family, they assumed they wouldn't be charged. The entitlement was unreal. They'd shown up unannounced, made demands on my time during the busiest service of the week, and now expected hundreds of dollars of food and wine to be free, just because we happened to share DNA. Tell them the check is correct, I said, my voice dangerously calm, and we don't comp meals for anyone. That's our policy. James hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. The dad is being kind of aggressive about it, he said, saying it's disrespectful to charge family members. Other tables are starting to notice. I wiped my hands on a kitchen towel, took off my coat again, and headed back to their table. Several other diners were glancing over, clearly aware something was happening. The energy in the dining room had shifted. When I reached the table, Dad started immediately, his voice raised just enough to be heard by nearby tables. Jake, there seems to be some mistake with the bill. We assumed, given our relationship, that the meal would be complimentary. There's no mistake, I said, my voice steady. The bill is correct. But we're family, Natalie said, like this simple fact explained everything and overrode all normal business practices. Your guests at my restaurant, I replied calmly, keeping my voice level and professional. All guests pay for their meals. That's how restaurants work. Mom's face flushed red, and her voice rose. After everything we did for you, you can't even treat us to one dinner? After we raised you and gave you everything. The words hung in the air. Several nearby tables had definitely heard that. My staff was watching from the kitchen pass, and I could see Christina standing ready in case things escalated further. I thought about all the responses I could give. The trash bags by the door. The $12,000 for Natalie's dance camp versus zero for me. Though we can't afford to feed you while they planned expensive trips. Being kicked out at 18 and told my dreams were worthless. All the years of them taking credit for my work or dismissing it entirely. Instead, I kept it simple and professional. The meal total is $777.40. I'll need a credit card to process payment. This is ridiculous. Dad said, his voice now a full-blown shout. We came here to reconnect, to support your business, and you're treating us like strangers. You're strangers, I said, my voice unwavering. You've been strangers for almost 10 years. And this is a business, not a charity for people who happen to share my last name. I signaled to James, who brought over the payment terminal. The other diners weren't even pretending not to watch anymore. Dad threw down his credit card with force. Fine, but don't expect us to come back. I don't, I said simply. James processed the payment. The silence at their table was thick. Mom looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Natalie was staring at her phone, probably panicking about what to post about this dinner now. Her boyfriend looked deeply uncomfortable, like he'd rather be anywhere else. The payment went through. James brought back the receipt for signature. Dad scribbled his name with obvious anger, didn't add any additional tip beyond the automatic gratuity, and stood up. Let's go, he snapped to the others. They gathered their things. As they stood to leave, Mom looked at me, tears welling in her eyes. The performance was impressive, I'll give her that. We were so proud when we saw that article, she choked out. We wanted to see what you'd built. We wanted to be part of your success. You wanted to be part of my success now that it exists? I asked, my voice still level, still professional. Where were you when I was washing dishes to survive? When I was living on someone's couch? When I graduated at the top of my class? I didn't raise my voice, but every word felt like a perfectly aimed jab. You made your choice 10 years ago. I'm just respecting that decision. Natalie finally found her voice. You're being really unfair. We came here to make amends, and you're holding grudges. I'm running a business, I said. If you want to make amends, that's something we can discuss outside of my restaurant, outside of my work hours, after you've had time to think about what you'd actually be apologizing for. But showing up unannounced and expecting free food isn't making amends. It's the same entitled behavior you've always had. They left without another word. I watched them walk out, their exit observed by dozens of diners who'd witnessed at least part of the confrontation. Once they were gone, the restaurant was silent for about 5 seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then another table joined in. Within moments, the entire dining room was applauding. I nodded politely, a small, genuine smile finally breaking through, and headed back to the kitchen where my team had witnessed everything. That was incredible, Christina said, her eyes wide. Completely professional, but absolutely savage. The rest of service went smoothly, though I could tell word was spreading. Some guests who'd seen the confrontation went out of their way to compliment the food when they left, adding generous tips and promising to return. After we closed and cleaned up, I finally sat in my office and let the emotions hit. Anger, sadness, relief, pride. Everything at once. I'd stood my ground. I'd protected my space. I'd refused to let them back in just because it was convenient for them. Christina knocked on the doorframe. You okay? Yeah, I said, exhaling slowly. Better than okay, actually. They'll probably try to contact you again. She was right. Within an hour, my phone, which I'd silenced during service, showed 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, and multiple voicemails. I didn't check any of them. Not that night. By Monday morning, the situation had escalated in ways I hadn't anticipated. Natalie had posted about the restaurant visit on her social media, but her version of events was, let's just say, creative fiction. According to her story, she and my parents had gone to support my business only to be publicly humiliated and overcharged for mediocre food. She claimed I'd embarrassed them in front of dozens of people and that the meal wasn't worth the price. She had thousands of followers, and the post was getting traction. People were commenting in support, saying I sounded like a terrible person, that families should support each other, that my prices were evidence of greed. She'd carefully edited the story to make them look like victims, and me look like a vindictive jerk with an ego problem. What she didn't know was that 3 of the diners from Saturday night were food bloggers with significant followings of their own. By Sunday evening, they'd all posted about witnessing the confrontation, with a very different take than Natalie's version. One blogger, Janet, wrote, "Witnessed something incredible at Ember last night. A family showed up expecting a free meal at this Michelin-starred restaurant. Chef/owner handled the entitled behavior with grace and professionalism. The food was exceptional. The atmosphere was perfect. And watching him stand his ground made the evening unforgettable. Full review coming soon." Another posted, "PSA, just because you're related to a successful chef doesn't mean you're entitled to free food. Watched a family throw a fit at Ember when they had to pay their bill like everyone else. The chef handled it like a pro. The duck was perfection, by the way. Worth every penny." The third blogger went deeper. "There's a story circulating about a chef who mistreated his family at his restaurant. I was there. Here's what actually happened." She laid out the truth. The 3 posts got shared and reshared. Other diners from that night chimed in with their observations. Within 24 hours, Natalie's narrative was falling apart under the weight of multiple eyewitness accounts contradicting her version. Food industry people started weighing in too. Other chefs commented about dealing with entitled family members. Restaurant owners shared similar stories. The general consensus was that I'd handled the situation appropriately. By Tuesday, a local news outlet picked up the story and actually called me for comment. I declined to be interviewed, but my publicist, yes, having a Michelin star meant I needed a publicist, issued a simple statement. Chef Jake maintains a policy of treating all guests equally, regardless of personal relationships. Ember does not comp meals for anyone, as this would be unfair to our paying customers who support our business. We appreciate the support we've received from the dining community and look forward to continuing to serve our guests the exceptional food they've come to expect. Professional. Diplomatic. And it completely shut down the narrative that I'd done something wrong. The calls and texts from my family continued. Dad left voicemails demanding I fix this and stop embarrassing the family. Mom sent long texts about how hurt she was. Natalie messaged saying I'd destroyed her reputation and owed her an apology. I didn't respond to any of it. My attorney sent them a cease and desist letter about the defamatory social media posts. Natalie took down her original post, but left up vague comments about toxic family members and lessons learned about success changing people. The irony of her saying success changed people was not lost on me. Meanwhile, business at Ember was booming. The controversy actually helped. Reservations were booked solid for 2 months out. People wanted to eat at the restaurant where the chef had stood up to entitled family members. We even had to add another seating time to accommodate the demand. One evening, about 2 weeks after the incident, an older couple came in for dinner. After their meal, they asked to speak with me. I went to their table expecting another compliment or recipe question. The man extended his hand. "I'm Thomas Mitchell, your father's brother. Your uncle, though we've never met." I shook his hand cautiously. "Another family member showing up couldn't be good. I wanted to come see what you'd built," he continued, "and to apologize on behalf of the family. Not everyone agrees with how your parents treated you." His wife nodded. "We heard about what happened when you were 18. We were living overseas at the time for Thomas's work. When we came back and found out they'd kicked you out with no support, we were appalled. We tried to find you," Thomas said, "but you'd changed your number and your social media profiles were gone. We wanted to help, but didn't know how. I didn't know what to say. I'd assumed the entire extended family was either supportive of my parents or completely indifferent." The meal was exceptional, his wife continued. "You've built something remarkable here. We just wanted you to know that not everyone in the family thinks what they did was acceptable." We talked for a few more minutes. They gave me their contact information and said if I ever wanted to reach out, they'd welcome it. No pressure, no expectations, just an open door. After they left, Christina asked what that was about. Apparently, I said, a slight smile on my face, I have some family members who aren't terrible. Who knew? The next unexpected contact came via email from Mr. Peterson. He'd retired from teaching, but had heard about the restaurant and the drama. His email was short. "Jake, I always knew you'd do something extraordinary. I'm sorry your parents couldn't see what was obvious to everyone else. You were the best student I ever taught, and not just because of your skills. You had heart. You still do. That meal you served them was worth every penny they paid. I'm proud of you, Peterson. I called him that night, and we talked for over an hour. He filled me in on his retirement, his grandkids, his garden. I told him about the restaurant, about Chef Anton and Chef Park, about building something from nothing. You did this yourself, he said. That's what makes it meaningful. Nothing was handed to you. You earned every bit of it. He was right. And that's what my parents could never understand. They thought I should be grateful they'd fed and housed me for 18 years, the bare minimum required by law. They thought throwing me out would teach me a lesson about appreciating them. Instead, it taught me that I was better off without them. 6 months after the restaurant incident, life had reached a new normal. Ember was thriving. We'd expanded our wine program, added a chef's table experience, and hired 2 additional line cooks to handle the volume. I'd even started the process of opening a second location, nothing huge, just a more casual spot serving elevated comfort food at accessible prices. The planning was exhausting, but exciting. My personal life was good too. I'd been seeing someone I'd met at a food industry event, Rachel, a food photographer who actually understood the restaurant world and didn't mind my crazy schedule. We'd been dating for 3 months, and it felt easy in a way relationships never had before. Rachel had asked about my family once, early on. I gave her the short version. She listened without judgment and said, "Makes sense that you've built your own family with your team and mentors." She was right. The people at Ember were my family now. We celebrated successes together, supported each other through challenges, and genuinely cared about each other's lives beyond work. Then I got a letter. Not an email or text, an actual, handwritten letter, forwarded to the restaurant from my parents' attorney. The letter claimed that I owed them compensation for my upbringing and education. They argued that since I'd used skills learned in high school culinary club to build my career, they were entitled to a portion of my success. They wanted $25,000 as repayment for their investment in my future. I read the letter 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. They were actually trying to extort money from me by claiming they deserved credit for Mr. Peterson's culinary club. My attorney just laughed when I showed her. This has no legal standing whatsoever. Parents are legally required to provide food, shelter, and education through age 18. They can't bill you for it later, especially when they kicked you out. And claiming ownership of your career because you took a class in high school? That's absurd. She sent a response letter that was professional but firm. The claim had no merit. Any further harassment would result in legal action. They needed to cease all contact immediately. 2 days later, Dad called the restaurant during lunch service. The host put him through to my office before realizing who it was. "Jake, we need to talk about this situation rationally," he began. "The situation where you're trying to extort money from me?" I shot back. "It's not extortion. It's fair compensation. We raised you. We fed you. We kept a roof over your head. That has value. You did the bare minimum required by law, then kicked me out at 18 because you couldn't afford to feed me, remember? That was your exact wording, because you needed the money for Natalie's dance camp. You were choosing one child over another, like you'd been doing my entire childhood. And now that I've succeeded despite you, rather than because of you, you want money." He changed tactics. "Your mother misses you. This conflict is killing her. She cries every day about not having a relationship with her son. She had 18 years to build a relationship with her son. She chose to focus on her daughter instead. And now that her son is successful, suddenly she's devastated? That's not missing me. That's missing access to my success." "You've changed, Jake," Dad said, a bitter edge to his voice. "Success has made you cold." "No," I retorted, feeling a surge of power. Getting kicked out at 18 made me independent. Working 90-hour weeks made me tough. Building a business from nothing made me confident. You're just upset that the son you dismissed as worthless turned out to be worth quite a lot." I hung up. Then I blocked their numbers, their email addresses, and any other way they could contact me directly. The attorney letters continued for a few more weeks, each one more desperate than the last. My lawyer handled all of it. Eventually, they stopped. Either their attorney told them the claim was hopeless, or they ran out of money for legal fees. Through all of this, business kept growing. Food critics from national publications came to review Ember. We maintained our Michelin star and started getting buzz about potentially earning a second. I was even invited to compete on a cooking show, one of those reality competition things. Normally, I avoided that kind of publicity, but the exposure would be good for the second location we were planning. The show aired 3 months later. I didn't win, came in third out of 12 chefs, but the experience was valuable and the exposure was incredible. The episode where I talked about opening my restaurant after being kicked out at 18 resonated with a lot of viewers. After the show aired, I got hundreds of messages from people sharing their own stories about unsupportive families, about building success despite obstacles, about choosing to create their own families instead of accepting toxic relationships. One message stood out. It was from a 17-year-old kid in Florida whose parents were telling him his dream of becoming a chef was worthless. He asked if he should give up or keep fighting. I called him. We talked for an hour. I told him about Mr. Peterson, about Chef Anton, about finding people who believed in him even when his family didn't. I told him that his parents' inability to see his potential said nothing about his actual abilities. "Are you any good?" I asked him. "I think so," he said. "My home EC teacher says I have real talent." Then find that teacher and ask for help. Ask for mentorship. Ask for guidance. The right people will show up if you're willing to work hard and stay humble. 3 months later, he sent me a video of himself cooking in what looked like a professional kitchen. He'd gotten an after-school job at a local restaurant. The chef there had seen his potential and was training him. "Thank you for believing in me when my own parents wouldn't," his message said. "You changed my life." That message meant more to me than any Michelin star or positive review. I'd been that kid. I knew what it felt like to have your dreams dismissed. And now I could help others in the same situation. I started a small scholarship fund for culinary students from difficult family situations. Nothing huge, just enough to help with tuition, books, and supplies for students who wanted to pursue cooking but lacked support. We funded it through a portion of profits from Ember and donations from people who'd heard my story. The first recipient was the kid from Florida. He was accepted to culinary school, and our scholarship covered half his first-year tuition. He sent me a picture of himself on his first day, wearing his chef's whites, with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. That's what success was supposed to be about. Not revenge, not proving people wrong, but using your position to help others who were where you'd been. It's been almost 10 years since my parents kicked me out with trash bags full of my belongings. 8 years since I opened Ember. The restaurant now has 2 Michelin stars. The second location opened last year and is doing great. The scholarship fund has helped 15 students so far. My parents occasionally try to reach out through distant relatives or old family friends. The message is always some version of wanting to reconnect or being so proud of what I've built. I don't respond. Natalie got married last year. I know because someone sent me a wedding announcement they'd received. I wasn't invited, obviously. Her dance career never took off. Turns out thousands of hours of training don't guarantee success if you don't have the work ethic to match your ambition. Last I heard, she's working in marketing and still living in my hometown. My relationship with Rachel is solid. She gets the restaurant life, understands why I am the way I am, and has become close with my chosen family. The team at Ember, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, Chef Anton, who occasionally visits from France, and Chef Park, who I still consider a mentor. Rachel's family basically adopted me. Her parents are warm and welcoming, interested in my work, proud of my achievements. Her dad tells people my future son-in-law is a chef with genuine enthusiasm. Her mom asks for cooking tips and actually listens to my answers. Last month was Thanksgiving. Rachel's family invited me to their celebration. Her grandmother made everyone go around the table and say what they were thankful for. When it was my turn, I said I was thankful for everyone who'd believed in me when it mattered, for the opportunities I'd been given to build something meaningful, and for finding a family that chose me, rather than being stuck with one I was born into. Rachel squeezed my hand under the table. Her dad raised his glass. "To families we choose," he said. "What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose your own family or overcome incredible odds when no one believed in you?" Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.